a lot of people are on GLPs or GLP curious and see, oh my God, so-and-so's lost so much weight. They look great. Oh my God, so-and-so's got Ozempic face. Oh my God, I just saw there's a whole bunch of people going blind from taking this. There's so many conflicting information. What are some of the side effects? And then what are some of the things that people can do to be successful if they're going to be taking GLPs?
All right. So there's a lot of clickbait out there.
Are you going through life blind? This is Eyes Wide Open with Nick Thompson. On this podcast, we share knowledge and stories that build human connection while elevating stigmatized societal issues such as mental health, holistic wellness, culture, free speech, and more, all to ensure we show up in the world with our eyes wide open. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Eyes Wide Open. Our guest today is a friend of the show. You may remember him from a year or so, maybe a year and a half ago. Our guest today is Dr. Jeff Gross. Dr. Jeff is a top spinal neurosurgeon and leader in cutting-edge anti-aging and regenerative medicine focused on longevity. He's also a public speaker covering all things longevity, and he's the founder of the Recelebrate Clinic. In full transparency, he's also someone I work with for longevity, and he's helped me over the last several years with my hip injury and recovery and ongoing recovery, which we've documented that step-by-step on the show, which those links will be below if you want to go catch up on those. But thanks for joining today. How are you?
Hey, great to talk to you. Thank you for having me back. It's good to see you.
My pleasure. Every time it's a good conversation for me, so I know it's a good conversation for the listeners. So,
and me.
And you, yeah. It's always fun, and you always have some new little nugget of refreshed information or new research or new something, including peptides, which is what I had you on today to talk about. Because as part of my ongoing hip therapy, we did. Why don't you really quickly? Do you want to recap what we did from?
Yeah, let's.
Is that okay?
So with your permission to share your health history. Right.
You have my permission.
Thank you. Yeah. So, you injured your hip. You could tell that story better. It's quite the story. Maybe you'll recap later. Yeah. But
I slipped on dog poop running outside that was covered in a leaf, and that's how I screwed up my hip.
Right. It was wet out though. It was a rainy day, or just had rained or something.
Yeah, okay. It was raining.
All right. So it wasn't just that. It was just a circumstantial nightmare. And you really strained and injured your hip, and it wasn't getting better. You tried everything. You did all the rehab. You did the usual, and you saw someone who said, "Here's what you need to do. You need to have a surgery, right? A surgical replacement, was it?"
Well, the first time I went, which was probably 4 months maybe after the injury, because I injured myself in the fall of 2021. And then it was like December I went finally, because it didn't get better. I thought it was going to get better, like one of those things that you just get used to. And so first it was a full labrum repair, because what I tore was my labrum, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the piece of cartilage that goes in between your hip joint and your socket, right? Your hip and socket.
The ball and socket, that's sort of the gasket in between. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at the time he was saying to do a repair. And I opted to do physical therapy to try and strengthen everything else around it and not go the surgery route, because after talking to my chiropractor and doing my own research, that negative term again, but doing my own research, it seemed to me like that is an option and it could work, but it could also just get re-injured relatively easily.
Yep.
And so I did physical therapy, chiropractic care, acupuncture. I'm trying to think if there was anything else in there. Physical therapy, I don't remember if I said that. And then I kept doing the physical therapy and the strengthening my hips and my glutes and that whole area. And it never really got better. And then it started getting worse. And then when I went back, which was 2023, which was a few months before I met you and talked with you, then he was like, the repair is not an option anymore. You basically are going to get cortisone shots for pain and inflammation until you can't manage the pain anymore. And he's like, they might work 6 months, they might work 6 days, it might work 6 hours. So when you're ready to not manage the pain anymore, that's when the hip replacement was the option. And I was at the point where I really couldn't handle the pain anymore.
And your age at the time you were offered that hip replacement, at least as a
30,
concept?
36, 37. Yeah.
So that just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So
it didn't seem right. And it was like one of those things where I was like, I know. And it's funny because I have talked to friends and other people who have experienced like the benefits of stem cell therapy and gone down to Panama and gotten it, or gone, wherever to get it. But it just seemed like something to me that was not like, I don't want to say real, because I knew it was real and I knew of them, but I don't know that I knew enough about it to say this is a path to take.
Right. Well, I wonder if the universe was conspiring through that subconsciously, because I was on your show last January, right? Or before then even.
So it was, you were on in the fall of 2023. And then after we filmed, we talked quite a bit longer about my injury. And then you said, well, maybe we should, consider this. And then ended up doing that in November 23.
Right.
Or no, I'm sorry, 24, not 23. And then last January, we had you on the show again because we did the follow-up on whether or not things worked. And then I had the episode in there. It's a shorter one, like 17 minutes, but I edited together kind of like a little documentary about my day of surgery with you. And then we've been kind of monitoring.
Not surgery.
Procedure day.
Injection day. So let's review what you did. And I think what happened was I was on your show, maybe because your brain was looking for something, and it came to be. And then after the show, you're like, hey, wait a minute, I could try this. And we talked about what we were doing for cartilage regeneration and joints through injection of regenerative biologics, stem cell based signaling, which is going to bleed over into our topic today of peptides.
Which is kind of the evolution of the journey.
Yeah, it is. So we had you out. You came to visit me in Las Vegas. We did. We targeted off some MRIs, and we did some injections in your injured hip bone. And if you really want to know all the details of that and why, look at the link that Nick will put in the show.
Yeah, it's all down there.
We talked about why that's superior, and why you don't have to leave the United States, and why we have all that here, and it's not illegal, and we hopefully handled all the myths. But and the first day you were like, oh no, what did I do? Remember, you were like, oh shoot, I'm going to go play some slot machine at the casino.
Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't walk all the way back to my room. And there were seats there. That was the...
Yep, you felt it. But a few weeks later, you started to, change. And over time, and of course, you did the work. You did the therapy. You did the strengthening. You were working out with your trainer, doing boxing, which is a lot of footwork and hip work and stuff like that. And you were able to do more and more over time. And you got some benefits. Maybe you can describe those, but they weren't.
Yeah.
They weren't 100%. So.
So I'll just clear this up because I don't want people to get the wrong idea. That evening after the injection, first of all, there's numbing. So I'm walking out of there like on sunshine, like I've got no pain. And then a couple hours later, I'm sitting at the slot machine because I can't walk up to my room. But the next day, I was already, that pain from the injection was already subsiding. I was able to walk with a little bit of pain. But I would say by that Saturday, and we did the procedure on a Wednesday or a Thursday, I can't remember, a Wednesday or Thursday, that next Saturday, so 3 days, I didn't have any of that injection pain, and I could already start to feel a little bit better. And that kind of continued an upward trend. It was some ups and downs, but it was consistently up, know, and getting better and feeling better. And I was able to do more with it. I was able to get more mobility. Some of the things that I shared with you, like sitting on my side didn't hurt like it used to hurt, and watching TV and, sleeping and stuff like that. So there were little tangible things there as well that I started to pay attention to and notice that things were getting better.
Yep. And a year after, or by the time we talked in January of 25, where were you with it?
I was feeling better, like trending up. I would say I was trending up, and I probably plateaued maybe March or April. Like it was around, I remember because it was like kind of on cue. You were like right around 6 months, if I remember correctly. And I was like, yeah, okay, I feel like I've plateaued. And it was better, like significantly better than Nick, who was considering a hip replacement. So it was definitely consistently better. But you thought
Good.
there might be some ways to make it even better, which was
Yeah.
peptides.
So we, hopefully we moved you away from surgeons for now, right? And the literature on this is very good. We're seeing, at least as good as the literature reported, which is something like 82% of patients at 15 years after a single injection have been able to avoid surgery successfully. So, we like that. Now, that study was based on knees. We do extrapolate it to other joints that we do, but we'll look back and when we get to that 15-year mark. But the field of cell signaling, encouraging your cells, my cells, someone's cells, to behave more youthfully, to rev up that healing restorative process, we have to signal to them. We have to tell them. We have to remind them how to behave like a young person who heals easily. And not that you were old, but you had that injury which accelerated the degenerative change, because you went from, oh, maybe we can do a labral repair, to no, now it's too late. So that's where we signaled your cells with the stem cell derived exosomes, the cell signaling material. But now we tapped into something we're doing a lot more of, becoming more popular, called therapeutic peptides. And we added that.
Yeah, which has been a game changer for me. And I think right now, and one of the reasons I'm so excited to talk about this, first of all, you've said it a few times, the research, like you're not getting, and obviously you're a doctor, you're not getting your information from an influencer who's pushing peptides, or even someone who's just sharing their experience, which I think is important. And I think that's that sort of peer-to-peer validation. And so I think, hearing me talk about my experience is good, but the research is important, because if you don't have the research, it's all subjective. And so I appreciate that you always talk about it with the research, but I think for a lot of people, it's one of those things where it gets very confusing, and it somehow becomes a little political sometimes based on who's talking about them or legalizing them or whatever. But before we dive into all of that, which is the fun part for me, tell me basically, and the audience, like what are peptides and where do they originate from?
Yeah. So peptides are not new, and peptides are small protein fragments. Proteins do most of the work in your body. Your hair is a protein. Your nails are a protein. Saliva contains many enzymes, which are proteins. Gastric enzymes are proteins. Your stomach in there. Many functions in the cell and outside the cell are built on proteins. Proteins are molecules that have nitrogen as part of them. They're biomolecules. They're made up of building blocks called amino acids. And there are 20 basic ones. Yeah, there are others. And we make most of them. There are a few we don't make. They're called essential amino acids. If you've ever seen EAAs in your protein powder before you go to the gym, those are the ones we can't make. And your muscles are full of protein. And if you're not, eating enough protein, you'll lose your muscles, and you don't want to do that. So proteins are part of brain function and everything. Well, the smaller ones, maybe 20 amino acids, although a few more, a few less, all the way down to maybe 2 or 3 amino acids, are called oligopeptides. Oligo means few. And we call them peptides for short. Things like insulin, things like the GLPs are peptides. And
Got
then we
lots
have
of
all kinds
question
of
on
cool
those
code names now. We'll talk about all the gym bros are using, all the moms who want better skin are using. From weight loss.
Yeah,
everything.
You were sharing some of those with me before too. And the Wolverine Protocol, which is what I did. Yeah.
You got to know the lingo and listen to this broadcast, and we'll teach you the lingo right here.
Teach you the lingo and teach you the facts, so you're not taking it from an influencer gym bro.
Right. We'll overlap with that, but we'll bring the science to it. Yeah.
Exactly. What is the reason that, and we're seeing some changes. In fact, the FDA is going to designate, I think it was, I got it pulled up, 19 or was it 14?
14 of 19 14 popular ones that were moved to another list. And I think and it's a very limited scope. So we should talk about the broad scope of regulatory, to be clear, because people don't understand this. There's a lot of misinformation, but your body makes these peptides, most of them. The only ones they don't make are ones that are slightly switched. Maybe one amino acid is switched out so it can be patented.
Of course.
That's where Eli Lilly comes in. Run away. So Eli Lilly has patented or has bought the patents or licensed the patents on the GLPs, known for their weight loss, but have other purposes. And the first one out there was called semaglutide. The second one out there, we sometimes call them GLP-1 for the first one. GLP-2 would be tirzepatide. They have brand names as well. And the third one is retatrutide. And all these are being brought to market and billionized by Eli Lilly. Yeah. So they're heavily involved in this regulatory.
And those are your Ozempics, Wegovy's,
Manjaro.
I'm forgetting some of the other ones. But
others. Yeah. So we don't use the brand names because Eli Lilly's doing just fine. We don't need to advertise for them.
Yeah.
But so the GLP-1s, reached their life of patent, the semaglutide. So then they started marketing the GLP-2s. The even better one, the GLP-3, the retatrutide, is around. It's around in Europe. We can get it here. I have a lot of patients on it. I take it. But Eli Lilly's not going to bring it to market until that tirzepatide, every last dollar squeezed out of that tirzepatide patent, right? So what's happened is these big farm companies who make a lot of money don't like the democratization and the self-care that people are doing by buying these online, buying them or getting them from compounding pharmacies. So there are a couple ways you can get peptides. You can get them online by what's called research use and online from a compounding pharmacy. And the short history of that is the peptides are made by these huge peptide synthesizing machines. Most of them are like in India, and they're attached to a resin. The resins are usually sent to China, and in China, they cleave it, clean it chemically, put it into a little powder, and ship it to the world, including the United States. So when people say, don't buy those Chinese peptides, they're all from China. So
as most things are.
Now, companies in the U.S. that import those peptides have to test them to make them pharmaceutical grade. They have to reach certain testing benchmarks, 99% pure, no impurities, no toxins, no contaminants, and they handle them in a certain clean way. And they don't have endotoxin, which means they're not have bacteria in them and stuff like that. So once you get through that process, they can be made into used by a compounding pharmacy. A lot of the research use only handle them the same way, but they're not licensed pharmacies, so they can't say pharmaceutical grade, even though they probably are. So if you ever buy these online, just make sure they have the certificate of analysis that has all that testing, and they have all the contaminant testing and they share it transparently, and that's safe for the most part. I can't make a medical claim of safety, but that's a safe thought process. Do your homework, shop around. So you can get these all over. But you're right. For a while, Big Pharma was telling the FDA, which is really the police dog of Big Pharma, to get those away from the compounding pharmacies. So they made them very difficult for the compounding pharmacies to use. But recently, the Secretary of Health and Human Services said, hey, we're going to move 14 of those back to it's okay for the compounding pharmacies to use them, even though you can still get them anyway. So
But does that mean they can be like used and prescribed for medical purposes instead of research purposes? Is that fair to say?
I mean, they're still available for research. They do not regulate the research side of that necessarily, unless they're sponsoring some type of study,
Right.
or reviewing some type of study. But some of these are actually approved for marketing claims by the FDA. SS31, which is a mitochondrial peptide, has an approved use. Now we use it off label, but most of them don't yet have an approved use for marketing claims. That doesn't mean we can't use them. People don't understand that. Let's make that clear. FDA approved does not mean you can have, you can't have, or a doctor can do, can't do. The FDA does not regulate, never has regulated the practice of medicine and what a patient receives or doesn't receive. They regulate marketing claims because they're supposed to protect consumers.
Paid for
marketing
by big
claims
pharma.
mean cure or treat a disease or condition. So just like with stem cells or exosomes or peptides, most of them, we can't make any claim. They won't let us make those claims. And doctors can't guarantee anything anyway. But we do have a job to make all the options available to you, or at least discuss them. Even if I don't do an option, I should at least say, hey, doing this other thing is an option. I don't do them. I'd have to send you to someone else.
Yeah.
But
Nick, you can get the hip replacement if you want to, but I think this is another alternative to consider. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, the FDA moved 14 of these, of course, not the GLPs, because Eli Lilly made sure of that, back to, or it's coming back. I guess they haven't done it quite yet, but it doesn't really change anything on our end. They're still available from compounding pharmacies. They're still available for research use.
If they're coming from a compounding pharmacy, let me ask a different question. Does this mean that those 14 that are going to be FDA approved, does that mean like insurance would be forced to cover them in any circumstance?
No, they're not.
No, okay.
They're not approved by the FDA for marketing claims. They're just moved from one list to another for compounding pharmacies. It's such a narrow scope. It has nothing to do with approval.
Got it.
And again, approval only deals with marketing claims. So people throw around that phrase, FDA approved. This isn't FDA approved. Most of what doctors do is not FDA approved. If we did some IVs this morning for people. One guy was dehydrated. We gave him IV fluids in the clinic and vitamins. None of that's FDA approved.
Yeah.
There's no approval for me that I can say these vitamins and this fluid will help you. Of course it will, but I can't say that. Why? It's not been approved for those marketing claims. That's how silly this is. That's how misused the phrase is. And everyone's freaking out. Consumers are freaking out. They're actually doing more disservice to the consumer than service.
Well, I almost feel like that's possibly by design. It's like a control mechanism to more psychologically than what it actually provides.
It's more control than they actually have is what it is. Yeah.
That is such a good way to put it.
Social control. And it's not, the government's the arm of it, but it's big pharma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're pretty much one arm feeds the other. So
yeah. And so, this is probably my last broadcast because I'll be buried in the desert later tonight. But we got to speak the truth. It's our job to be transparent and get the word out that, you as a patient listening, potential patient, you have options and you need to do what's best for you. And our job is to give you tools to make that decision.
I always tell people, and I talk about it on this show with varying doctors and specialists and stuff like that I think we've been conditioned generally, not everyone, generally, that you talk to the doctor and the doctor is like the authority figure, as they should be. And that's fine. But there's very much a playbook in a lot of cases. Like, I don't think the doctor that was trying to do my hip replacement is ill-intentioned, but when you're in a sandbox and all you see is the sandbox, you zoom out and you realize you're actually in the desert and there's a little bit of sandbox in the desert. And so if you can't see the full desert and all you see and all you know and all you've been trained on is the sandbox, like, it's not necessarily ill-intentioned, but people need to take control of their own health and wellness.
Yeah.
And there isn't a pill to fix most things. And there's integrative approaches that you can take, but you got to kind of control it yourself. It's not going to run it or it will run you when it comes to your health.
Well said. 30 to 40 years ago, the medical authority, doctors had the right to make decisions. Health insurance companies had to listen to that. Now that is flipped, and the tail is wagging the dog, right? The health insurance payments are deciding how doctors work. And you're right, that gets boiled down to a cookbook or a playbook, as you said, or an algorithm. And here's the menu. I've got cortisone shots, I've got labral repair, and I've got hip replacement. There's nothing else on the menu because they would never pay for anything else. So, that Kool-Aid is very strong. And a lot of my colleagues, back from my traditional days of doing spine surgery and things, they're stuck in that. And I'm disgusted when I hear, well, I really wanted to do this surgery for so-and-so, but I did this other surgery because that's the one they would approve. The insurance would approve. I'm like, seriously?
That's
what
terrible.
happened to the Hippocratic Oath, sir? So I put down the Kool-Aid a while ago, and and I might be in the minority of people who are able to do that, but it's just medicine's not the authority anymore. The payer is the authority, and it's sad. So you're right.
I think that one of the comedians I listen to says that the insurance industry is a mafia middleman between you and your doctor. And, I always laugh at it. I've heard it probably 100 times, but I always laugh at it because it's like they get to tell you and your doctor what your treatment plan is, unless you have unlimited funds to pay for what you actually need. And the insurance industry is a horrible industry in this country specifically, which I also think, and I'd love to get your take on this too, but I think that's partially the way our insurance is private and everything is set up. I think that's also partially why we're so far behind on some of this research that I know you've cited studies from Europe and all over the world that are.
Oh, I'm not behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we as a sick care system are behind. Consider this, Nick. There is enough money in healthcare. It's just being sucked out, profitized at the insurance level. It doesn't get to the delivery of the care. United Healthcare, I'm calling you out. You make more in a day than you pay out in a year in medical care. Think about that. That's a 365x plus.
That's insane.
No, that's reality. And sadly, this happened in the mid 80s when health insurance got deregulated. It should be more like a public utility where, okay, you can make 10% above the cost. That's what it used to be. And they used to pay, and it was reasonable and everyone was happy. And that's why doctors had no problem taking Medicare and Medicaid, because they were making enough money on third-party, health insurance that, of course, will take care of everybody, right? The Hippocratic Oath. Yeah. Well, now you can't stay in business if you're doing that, and you only have 5 minutes with a patient because you got to see 12 an hour, and nobody's happy there. You're not giving good care, and you're missing stuff, and no one's happy. The patient's not happy. The doctor's happy. They have this thing now called burnout that they never had before, right? Yeah. Well, of course, you're seeing 60 patients a day or more. Of course, you're burnt out.
It's like too much information. That's another thing that is so interesting that I've explored quite a bit. And I know we're maybe talking a little bit about like the mental health side of stuff, which we'll talk about with relation to peptides. But I think because of, in my episode on this show, I did a solo episode a couple of weeks ago about how to like manage the constant 24/7 news cycle of war and another war and kidnapping a leader of a sovereign country and saber rattling with another country and like all of these and ice in Minnesota, like all these crazy things are going on all day, every day. And what it does is it creates like a cognitive overload for us. And if you take that and apply that to so many of the situations that we're in, from doctors having to see 60 patients a day instead of 10, and your brain isn't programmed over hundreds of thousands of years to get that much information, process it, and retain it.
Yeah. 100%. And that's why we're overstimulated. We have neuroinflammation and we can't sleep and we have anxiety. And I say we, generally speaking.
I thought you were just naming my symptoms.
Where did the bad man affect you through his social media?
But what is that? What is you said, was it neurological inflammation?
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
constant activation of your brain is causing neuroinflammation. It's causing early dementia, increased incidence of dementia. It's causing, anxiety. It's causing other health problems earlier. It's causing rapid aging. And our brains and our bodies need to be turned off and plugged in for reset mode. Plug in the robot vacuum and turn it off for half a day. So we got to get that restorative sleep. You got to wind down. You got to turn the brain off. It works better the next day if you do that.
Definitely does.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, I didn't know that about I know dementia has been on the rise for younger people. I've followed that. I'm very interested in that. And I had not made any kind of connection like you just said. We're so screwed. Sometimes I'm just like,
I know.
We're doing it to ourselves. Any peptides for that? Maybe
yes, there are tons of peptides. Let's talk peptides.
Let's get back to peptides. Okay, so what are some of the things that you've seen in your experience, which again, to just reiterate, is all research based, in your experience with peptides? What are some of the benefits that you've helped specific patients with?
Yeah, so basic peptides, we'll start with the GLPs, right? You can lose weight on GLPs, which is great. You can improve your insulin sensitivity and blood sugar. You can improve your metabolism. You can reduce overall inflammation, which has been shown in research to slow inflammation-related disease formation, dementias, cardiovascular events.
And that's in the GLPs?
Yeah, and helps clean up fatty liver, retatrutide especially. So if you party a little too much with alcohol in your 20s, 30s, maybe beyond, then you need to flip the switch and clean it up. So there are actions you can take with these peptides. By the way, we should say the vast majority of these peptides work through a subcutaneous injection like insulin. You just put it in your pinch an inch and put it in there. Some of them are 3 times a week. Some of them are daily. Some of them are weekly. Some of them you do for a month or two, depending on what you need, and go off, cycle on and off. So GLPs are an easy way to start. And then you meet certain health goals with that. A second group would be mitochondrial repair peptides. So if you want to improve,
can we stay on the GLPs for a second?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was just blazing on through.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So I have seen a lot of the side effects and a lot of the concerns people have of the GLPs. You have, and I've listened to you on some other shows, you have dispelled some of those. Yeah. So what are some of the ways, because I think a lot of people are on GLPs or GLP curious and see, oh my God, so-and-so's lost so much weight. They look great. Oh my God, so-and-so's got Ozempic face. Oh my God, I just saw there's a whole bunch of people going blind from taking this. There's so many conflicting information.
Yeah.
What are some of the side effects? And then what are some of the things that people can do to be successful if they're going to be taking GLPs?
All right. So there's a lot of clickbait out there, the paralyzed GI tract and all that. It's nonsense. So let's talk about the reality. Most people, especially at the beginning of taking a GLP, will have some nausea. The first day is the biggest day because you're shocking your metabolism. Okay. So if you've ever run a marathon, you hit the wall at some point if you're not taking carbs. And I used to run marathons in the early days before there were, packets of sugary goo and stuff you could take.
Oh yeah.
They handed you water, as you pass by. Like, that's all you got.
It wasn't electrolyte drinks.
Yeah, they didn't have that stuff. They certainly weren't giving it out for free. But you would hit the wall, and your metabolism goes, I'm running out of sugar, and you feel yucky. If you've ever gone on a keto diet and you hit that wall, it's called the keto flu. So you get that with the GLP. You feel like crap the first day or two. So we start with a very low dose. Every now and then I have one person like even that low dose was too much, and they have to suffer through the first few days. But once you get past that, then you're smoother sailing. And then we do ratchet up the dose until we get to where it needs to go. And every adjustment you might feel, oh, my stomach's like not great, I don't want to eat. Well, that's part of the reason you don't eat. Now, does it slow the motility of moving things through your system? It does. Does it cause paralysis of the system? No, but you can get real backed up. So you got to get ahead of that, and fiber and laxatives if you need it, laxatives, things like that. So you got to stay ahead of it. We counsel people up front. Yeah. So what you're hearing is these probably people are overdosing or they're misdosed by someone, and they don't take care of it, and they're not staying ahead of it. They're not taking fiber. They're not taking laxatives, and they show up in the ER and their gut's not moving well and they're full of poop.
Yeah. I was going to ask. Yeah. Full of shit. Yeah. I'll say it. So do you think we have a dosing issue? Because I know that there's just like with everything, there's regulation on the most you can prescribe from a dosing perspective. Do you think there's like a chronic dosing issue where maybe we're prescribing too high of doses because people want to get that instant or anything going on there?
No, I think there's no regulation on dosing. There's guidance, right? There are studies and the research, like you said. So we always start low and ratchet it up as tolerated to the dose where the results are starting to be seen. Losing 2 pounds a week is great. Some people lose it slower. If you're losing it faster, it might dial you back. That might be a little too much, too fast.
Yeah.
And are you going to get skinny looking? Yes. Is that going to show in your face? Yes. That's the goal. We can deal with that later. Yes. You've got to maintain muscle though. And the semaglutide has muscle loss bigger than the other ones. Retatrutide has much less muscle loss. And there are other things we do to stimulate the muscle gain during that time. Of course, you got to work out. You can't sit on the couch I'm taking the shot. I don't have to do anything.
Well, that's what I feel like. Yeah, so many people, they want to lose the weight. And I get it. Like I've struggled at times with my weight, especially growing up and as I'm getting older and stuff. And I get it. I feel for people that struggle with their weight and they just want to be skinny. But a lot of it still, from my understanding, if you want to be truly successful, your goal can't just be to lose weight. It's got to be to be healthier and build healthy habits so that you are maintaining your strength and you're not going to lose any of the bone density and you're not going to experience the backups that you were talking about earlier. Is that a fair assessment to say? And
oh yeah, you got to do the work. You got to learn habits and change your life. Otherwise, the results you get aren't going to stay, and you're not going to get the most out of this. So, we didn't say this at the beginning, but peptides are a tool that should be superimposed upon, looking at your lifestyle as a whole from the beginning. Your diet, your nutrition, your sleep, your stress, your supplements, your hormones, everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually I know a lot of people that I'm kind of surprised, a lot of people that are taking it. And I see a few, but I don't see a lot of people putting in the work as well. And that's where I get kind of concerned for it.
Yeah.
But I remember we actually talked a little bit about this when we had dinner a while back. And that was very eye-opening to me, no pun intended with the show name, but it was very eye-opening to me because of, okay, well, people maybe shouldn't be on super high doses that they're on. Maybe they should, do other things to maintain their strength and make sure that they're not just doing it to lose weight quickly, that they're doing it to and I gained a little bit of hope after being very depressed about it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you want to reset on your life, you're middle age, you want a dad bod makeover, whatever, it's a great tool, but it's not, like you said, you got to do the work. You got to get in shape. You got to add muscle. Muscle is longevity.
That's important to know. That's for men and women and everyone. You gotta,
I mean, obviously different amounts and what they want out of it, but yes.
Yeah. So before we got into I stopped you from going into another set of peptides that you've seen results with to deep dive a little into the GLP-1. So go back and tell us another one.
Yeah,
that you've seen
I
success
was
with?
ready to jump right into the mitochondrial peptides. The two most common ones are called MOTS-C, MOTS-C, and SS31. SS31 actually has approval by the FDA for marketing claims. See, I said that right.
Mm-hmm.
But it's for an orphan disease. I believe it's Barth syndrome. So it's used off-label for mitochondrial repair. It helps repair the mitochondrial membrane. Remember, mitochondrial organelles within our cells, kind of a cell within a cell. It does produce energy, and it's of crucial importance. We're learning more and more all the time. Your muscles have tons of it. Your brain needs it. And the healthier your mitochondrial population, healthier your cells are, and the healthier your cells are, the healthier you are, right?
Yeah.
This is just getting down into molecular biology. So SS31 helps repair the membrane of the mitochondria. And a mitochondria is like a battery. You got to seal it. It's like this. You got to close the windows and doors before you turn on the air conditioning at home. So you got to seal it. So we do the SS31 for a month, and then we might then move over to the MOTS-C and in repairs so the internal functions of the mitochondria. And why would your mitochondria be messed up? Well, they get messed up by disease, by toxins, molds, exposures, and spike protein is incredibly damaging for the mitochondrial membrane. So we're seeing patients with long COVID, things like that. So sometimes you just need a mitochondrial reset, a month of SS31, maybe a month or two of MOTS-C, and we see how it goes. We've seen some amazing results with that.
Wow. I didn't know that. I mean, I know all about the spike protein, unfortunately, but I didn't know that they were peptide treatments for that. I've seen other protocols and stuff,
well, they're not anything approved for marketing, but we are using them for that purpose, and we are seeing results, generally speaking, and it's an option for the individual to try if they've tried everything else or nothing else was offered by their sick care, burnt out, 12 patients an hour doctor.
It's funny.
Sorry, guys.
But again, it's the system, right? Yeah. It's like the system they're in. You become a product of your system unless you're able to, have the privilege to walk away from it. It's just kind of unfortunate. So, but yeah, I always am surprised because like my dermatologist spends time with me. Yeah. And I'm always like, okay, this is weird. Can we wrap it up? Like, I'm not used to having someone that like spends time and asks about how certain things are going. And instead of just handing me a medication and saying, get out of here. So it's
real
rare.
Doctoring requires time so you don't miss anything. And I've always enjoyed that nerdy OCD deep dive because you never know what you're going to learn in that 60th minute of the visit,
Yeah, that's actually very true. Are there any dangers that people should worry about aside from what we talked about with GLP-1s in peptides or any specific peptides that people should proceed with caution or pay attention to side effects?
You really need to do your homework. Make sure you're getting it from a reputable source that has certificates of analysis and impurity testing that they share transparently, that you handle it in a safe and clean way. A lot of people draw these up on their own. You got to keep them refrigerated. You got to, sterilize the top with an alcohol wipe every time you touch the bottle because contamination is probably the number one reasons they go bad. And then, dosing, you really want someone to guide you on dosing. We start low and we work our way up to see where the benefits kick in. Although I'd say largely most people are underdosing a lot of the musculoskeletal peptides and a lot of the mitochondrial peptides. And I'm sure we'll talk about the musculoskeletal ones shortly because you use them. Yep. But mostly we're just not seeing side effects except local skin reaction from where you inject it, little red spot, little bumpy, little itchy, maybe a little histamine response. Usually takes care of itself. If you use copper peptide, which is great for inflammation and for skin and hair, that does sting a little, but it's very temporary. And these injections don't, they're small. It's a Botox-sized needle. It's super skinny. If you do it right, barely feel it, if that.
Yep, absolutely. Let's talk about the muscle skeletal peptides because you're right. I am What am I in, like week 6? I can't even remember. Time doesn't have
Mhm.
consistency to me anymore. But yeah,
Yeah.
so let's talk about some of those and the
Yeah.
benefits of what people could expect.
Yeah. So early when I was, I've been doing these regenerative joint and spine injections now for a number of years. And the peptide, availability has grown and grown. And it was only perhaps in the last year or so where I now add them as a standard add-on
Mm.
for those procedures. So when we did your injection, it was on my radar. We were doing some GLPs and things, but not enough. And I've done a lot of training, and now I actually train others on
Oh,
peptides.
cool.
But yeah, in fact, my number one request to speak right now, and I do some speaking, is peptide education. To
That's why you're
clinicians.
here.
That's why I'm here. Yeah, okay. No, but I thought you were my number one fan. You listen to all my podcasts.
I am.
Thank you.
I
Love that.
speak so highly of you
Thank you.
and what you've been able to do for me and the work I see you doing out there with others from an education
Thank you.
perspective, from treatment. It's amazing because it's like you said, it's very easy to not. It's very easy to see your 60 patients a day. It'd be very
Yeah.
easy for you to keep doing, neurological and spinal surgeries and, making sure you're doing the one that's going to get paid by the insurance and maybe,
Yeah.
but you opt out and you
Yep.
choose to go left when everyone's going right. So
I thank you for that. And so anyway, when you came to me and said, I'm better, I'm not all the way better. In fact, we hadn't had a follow-up in quite a while. So I usually track my patients every 2 months after an injection. And I think we had lost sight of each other for a minute. And I said, oh, how's Nick doing? And we dialed it back in, and you said, yeah, I'm better. I can do more. I can do my sports. I'm working on my training. I'm doing all these things. But I still have this little catch, this little thing. And I can't remember the percentage you said you were better from the injection. And I said, you know what? The peptide thing is really blossoming. Let's try a repair and recovery peptide. This is the stuff that like Aaron Rodgers took when he injured his ankle, and a lot of athletes take, and we're using them for other things now. But so we put you on a Wolverine combo, I believe, first, and the Wolverine, is for the X-Men character who can heal himself, but
that's the Jim Bro term.
The Jim Bro term, but I like it. It's good. It's I guess we need to thank. Is that Marvel, or is that? Yeah, I think it's Marvel.
You're asking the wrong person. I do not
Marvel
care
or
about
DC.
those.
I get my universes
Marvel.
mixed up. Okay,
I think it's
so
Marvel.
We want to give them, acknowledge their trademark. Disney here. We're doing it right. So if it's DC, then it's whether DC, Warner Brothers, whoever has that one. And then it's two peptides. The first is called BPC-157. So get to know the lingo. That stands for Body Protection Compound 157, and it's actually naturally occurring in your stomach juice, and it's really good for the gut. If you have gut, you need to heal the gut, leaky gut, problems with the gut, ulcers, things like that. You can take it orally. It's one of the few that work orally. Otherwise, you really don't get it in your system. But injectable, it's anti-inflammatory, and it supports angiogenesis, which is building new capillaries, new blood vessels, and healing in general, especially of the collagen building, which you need to repair a strain or a sprain or a tear of some kind. So that's one. And then its sibling is called TB-500, which is the synthetic version of a naturally occurring thymosin beta fragment. Comes from the thymus gland. So we make it in our bodies, then we just don't make enough later. And it's really good for angiogenesis, new blood vessels, and repair and regeneration. Together, they're synergistic. The BPC-157, the TB-500 form the base of what's called a Wolverine. And then with it, we usually add either a KPV, which is a 3 amino acid peptide for inflammation, really good for neuroinflammation, the brain, and or copper, which is also anti-inflammatory, reparative, and good for skin and hair. And that is sort of a peptide that we dial up, and it can help. So this might be a place where you can tell us your story there, because I think it's a good story.
Yeah, so it was, I remember because it was around my birthday last year because I was having my existential crisis of turning 40. But that was when we did the Wolverine Protocol. And I remember like within maybe 2 days of doing it, and I was doing it every day. Within 2 days of doing it, I felt, when I look back on it, I think it was probably like the inflammation was going down, but I started feeling better significantly. And I can't remember how much I did. I think I did 2 or 3 rounds of it. And it helped. It helped get me, like, if I think I told you I was probably at like 70% healed or 70% better from where I was, not 100%. And then this kind of brought it up even a little bit higher, a little bit higher. And then when we met up again in, I think it was November when you were in Chicago, and then we were having dinner, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still better. I'm not great. And then you recommended another round, but with Cartilax added to the Wolverine, and that was a game changer. I did that for, I think, 3 months, about 3 months, and I had 6 weeks in there where I had absolutely no hip pain. And now I would say I'm pretty much don't notice it 90% of the time. And that is when I'm doing, like, standing here, when I'm walking, when I'm boxing, when I'm doing my workouts, like 90% of the time, I have very minimal, maybe a little pinch or no pain. And that was after 3 months. And so now we're cycling off to see if it maintains. But that second round there, that was a real game changer.
So you sure you don't need a hip replacement?
Not yet. Not yet. I'm feeling,
that makes me happy.
I'm feeling better than I have in a long time.
That makes me happy. So Cartilax is a cartilage anabolic. It helps build cartilage. It's newer to our menu of peptides. Yeah. So that's why we're adding that now as a standard when we do these injections. I have doing injections next week. We have a bunch lined up, and everyone's been recommended Wolverine plus Cartilax combo. There are places now that make those three together in one bottle, so it's a single injection. Just so we're clear.
That's what I got. Yeah, that's what I got. I got the single bottle.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you would want someone who's peptide curious? What are some of the things aside? I mean, you shared, make sure it's, has the proper certification. Is that the word you used? So that they were produced. Yeah.
So you want to make sure they have, they do the right testing and they share it with you when they import these things. And then that they have, no impurities, and they share that with you, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And so with that, actually, I almost forgot. Mental health. What are some of the peptides that research and starting to indicate perhaps there's some sort of mental health improvements?
Yeah. Well, we are seeing that if we can reduce neuroinflammation, we have some benefits in mood. So one of those might be what's called KPV, which we mentioned earlier. It's a small peptide that's great for neuroinflammation. There are others for brain and nerve repair, like ARA290. You might consider for cognitive, sometimes there are cognitive issues. And also for neuroprotection, we have two called Selank and Semax, SEMAX, SELANK. And there are even others. For mood, we also might use an oxytocin in a nasal spray. That can be helpful. It just depends on what we're addressing. But oxytocin nasal spray can really help someone chill out.
Can we get one of those for like everyone in the world right now? Because I think we all need to chill out a little bit.
We could put it in the air supply just like they did with the COVID stuff.
We could talk about that too.
Yeah, right.
When someone is, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going? I had one other question I wanted to ask you. Totally blank. Oh, yes.
You need
so
some
I have a lot of
Max.
There you go. Well, now I have just thought about, how does someone know when they have neuroinflammation? Like, what are some
Well,
of the
they may not
symptoms?
know. I mean, you'd have to do all kinds of esoteric tests, but
Yeah.
blood tests or stuff like that. But
Okay.
honestly, if you've got a group of these symptoms, I would say it makes more sense maybe to try the peptides, assuming you have neuroinflammation, before you take a bunch of pharmaceuticals. You take a bunch of Prozac or
Yeah.
antidepressants, which will dull you anyway. So I'd much rather you try the peptides first.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think that's a great
By the
piece of
way,
advice.
a lot of the anxiety and the ADHD out there is inflamed, nervous activity. So if we can, we're seeing a lot of peptides get people off of Adderall and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Okay.
They usually need a little mitochondrial repair, and then we can add some of the neuropeptides on top.
That's really interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
I didn't. What if these became readily accessible, recommended? I mean, the things
They
that we
are.
could change.
They are accessible. They're not recommended because most
Yeah.
traditional doctors haven't heard of them or haven't gone back and bothered to retrain. And that requires a paradigm shift. You have to actually
Yeah.
pull yourself out of the chair, put down the Kool-Aid, and go do it.
Yeah. And when I say accessible, I mean, people can get them, but like make sure they're affordable and available to other people. And to your point, more people are recommending them as a starting point, and just kind of the overall. Because
Yeah,
I know, so Carrie, who you've met, my girlfriend, when she was like first learning about them with me when I was going through it, and the injectable thing was a little scary. And so I think there's a little bit of a stigma around stuff that doesn't have that label or isn't available at your pharmacy down the street. And so I think like making
yeah.
it that's what I mean by accessible.
No, listen,
Like normalized, maybe
if
is a
by
better word.
accessible to the common listener of this show, if the pharmacy is what you think is accessible, then you'll always be in that paradigm where you get drugs for you're sick, here's your pill.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to be in that? Because you're in it.
If you want to watch a good documentary series, I know there's 2, maybe 3 on Netflix. It's called Take Your Pills. And then they talk about, one of them is Adderall, one of them is Xanax. And then there's a third one, I think, that I can't remember what it was for. Very interesting documentaries about how these drugs became totally normalized. Yep. As it's totally, you probably know.
No, but you made me think of a Saturday Night Live skit from probably the late 70s, where they are advertising puppy uppers and doggy downers.
Oh my gosh!
This is probably like Gilda Radner era, and Lorraine Newman doing that commercial. But that's exactly what we're talking about.
Let me tell you, I think I spend more money on my dog supplements than I do on my own.
Yeah.
Like I look at his supplement stuff and I'm like, God, this is like hundreds of dollars, I think, a month I'm spending on this dog to keep him, keep him as healthy as possible.
Yeah. You got to get your dog a little rapamycin, a senolytic, an anti-ager, and you got, Yep.
Second to last question. What are some good peptides for skin repair, hair repair, more of the cosmetic side of things?
Yeah. Your GHK-Cu, also known as the copper peptide. By the way, sometimes these letters, GHK, there's a nomenclature for each amino acid has its own letter code. So it's 3 amino acids, the G, H, and K. If I like glycine, histidine, I can't remember what the K is. And then copper. And it's blue in color, and it's great for skin. Try that for 30 days and see what your skin quality looks like. See what your hair growth is like. You can also do it as a topical, and you also micro roll, get a roller, a microderm roller, and make little pinpricks in your scalp, and then do the topical and the injectable. So you get it inside and out, your skin, your hair. That's a good one. It also works on the rest of the body, but really known for skin and hair. That's your cosmetic one, your go-to. Now there's a new one, or at least newly on my radar, called AHK, slightly different. And it's amazing. You flip one amino acid, the whole thing changes. Like you get this new power. So I'm reading on that now. Keep your eyes open for AHK. You got AHK-Cu and GHK-Cu.
Okay. So there we go. I think that might be my next exploratory because I want my skin to clear up. It has not been very clear lately. I think it's the winter. I get very like rosacea and red and
We
all
got you.
that.
We got you. Yeah, we'll get you. Well, what we can do is we're going to come off your Wolverine Cartilax soon if you're not already, and then
I am off.
We'll put you good, and we'll see how that goes. And next time we talk, we'll get you going on something, maybe just plain copper peptide, GHK.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Last thing before we head out, is there anything that you want to ask me? I think I forgot at the beginning to say at the end you can ask me anything, even though we talk before.
I don't think so. I think we've covered a lot, and I'm here for you and anyone that's interested in peptides. There's a lot more we could talk about, but I think we did a good job of sort of covering a general base for people. We didn't really get into the muscle building peptides and some of those things, and the libido peptides and the tanning peptides. So if you look at my skin color right now, for those of you watching this and not just listening, I'm a very, very pale Caucasian generally, but I took a few months of melanotan-2, a peptide, which is a fragment of what's called melanocyte stimulating hormone, which stimulates, pigment. And I got tan, and I've maintained some of it now for a couple months. I started it over Thanksgiving, did about 2 months, and I stopped. But there are all kinds of cool things. There were sort of.
It's so funny because I've commented on your tan last week or 2 weeks ago at my doctor's appointment, my follow-up with you. And then today too, I was like, you keeping that tan.
I did get a little bit of sun. Recently we took the kids to Disneyland and took a lot of Wolverine Clo with copper every night just so we could do 20,000 steps a day, but there are ways to achieve many goals through learning more about biology, and peptides is a great way to signal cells to do what you want them to do.
Yeah. I think that's a great sum up right there. It helps you signal your cells to do what you want them to do and what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah. Well, thank you again for coming on today. I know this was quick turnaround from last week and always helpful and always a pleasure. Can you tell people where they can find you on social media and your website? And those links will all be down in the show notes too.
Thank you so much. So our practice is called Re-Celebrate because we're celebrating the renewal of your cells. ReCellebRate. You can find us at Re-Celebrate on, I think, every social channel, just about, even Pinterest. And you can find us.
I didn't see the Pinterest one.
I put that out there because one of my staff created it. We have recelebrate.com, which is our website. I think we're the only people really using that name, that spelling. So we've pretty much cornered the internet that way. So find us. And if you want to talk peptides, you need any help, you have a joint you're trying to avoid surgery, please talk to us, learn about all the options.
Yeah. And get a second opinion. I know that's something you've always said. Get a second opinion. So, all right. Dr. Jeff, thanks again so much. I'm sure we'll be doing this again soon. We got a lot more to explore and a lot more that you can share with your knowledge and experience. So we'll be sure to do this again soon.
Awesome. Anytime. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Eyes Wide Open. If you enjoy the show, the best way to support us is by sharing or dropping a review. For more information and content, check out engagewithnick.com or find me on Instagram at nthompson513. Don't go through life blind. Do the work so you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.